All right, we are live for another episode of the MisterRentToOwnHomes Show. My name is Dominic Danino, aka Mr. Rent to Own Homes. And in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about some of the pitfalls of working with some other rent to own companies. And we're going to talk about the big ones and the smaller ones and all of the above. So today I am joined again by my friend, the real estate agent, investor in the Colorado market, Denver market primarily, but doing some Colorado Springs and able to do this model in any part of Colorado. James Brown, welcome.
Yep. Good to be on here again. This is going to be a good topic.
Cool. Yeah. So these are kind of the things that we dive into or we run into on a daily basis when talking with other people that have worked in these other or with other or attempted to work with these other rent-to-own companies. And they have their method, right? And some of the challenges that they've incurred in working with some of these other companies, and also some of the things to look out for anyone working with another rent-to-own company, asking the right questions and so forth. So the first one I like to kind of talk about, because I see this in some Facebook groups, and I know some other investor methods teach some of this rent-to-own. I call the junkie house method. Right, so the junkie house method is typically going to be a house that's not move-in ready, that it's going to be a little bit run down, it's going to need some work, and in these methods, they're hoping to get somebody in there that'll put some sweat equity into it, meaning that they're handy and can fix stuff up themselves, right? So these properties would never pass an inspection, right, on a traditional sale. They would never pass an appraisal condition for traditional financing, right? So these are cheaper houses, but there's a reason why they're cheaper, right? Because there's some work to be done, right? And the avatar for these type of properties are people, like I said, handymans, people that are in the trades, people that are, DIY, do-it-yourselfers, basically say, yeah, I'll take a cheaper house and I'll do the work on it, and I'll put the money into the paint, the tile, the cabinets, whatever it may be, all the materials, and I'll do the work myself. Now, they may not be licensed to do that. They may not be an expert in doing it, but they think they can do it because they've seen HGTV, right? How hard can it be, right? So they get in their hands in there and they're going to live in it sometimes. And sometimes they may say, you know what? I can get into it for cheap. And this person, I'm going to make payments to this person, and I can fix it up as much as I can and maybe put a tenant in it or something to that effect, right? So it could be an owner occupant, or it could be an investor that's doing buying some of these junky house properties, and the sellers of these junky house properties are collecting payments. They're basically doing an installment sale. Some of the times it's a lease purchase potentially. But the pitfalls of this method is obviously they're targeting a specific audience. But the problem with those properties are you as an agent would never put somebody into a house like that. I don't think that you would. Most traditional agents are going to be comfortable in putting a homestead buyer, right, an owner occupant into a property in this condition, because if this individual is working a full-time job and they got a family, when are they going to have time to fix this up? What if the toilets and the faucets and there's plumbing issues and electrical? Could there be, I don't know, some dangers in that where wiring isn't up to code and they're going to mess around with it and maybe a fire happens or somebody gets themselves hurt? Agents are probably reluctant to put people into those houses because, as their brokers would probably tell them, hey, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Somebody gets hurt, you put them into it, and who are they going to blame? Now, the person that got into it knows very well what they got themselves into it, but when things happen, sometimes they are looking to blame people, right? So you as an agent, I mean, how comfortable would you be feeling with putting somebody into one of these types of houses?
Yeah, that would be risky for sure. Yeah.
especially an owner occupant, you're going to put a family in it. If it's an investor, it's different, right? Because there's risk involved with being an investor. Say, hey, you're an investor, you get in there, you mess with it, and you get yourself hurt. Maybe that's not such a liability. But when you're putting a family with children in there, then that's a whole different issue, right? You get into a problem, the courts and so forth. A judge and a jury is going to look at that a little bit different when you had children in there in a family versus, hey, you're a grown adult. You thought you were a handyman HGTV person, and you fell off the ladder or whatever, fixing it up yourself. That's a you problem, right? And you didn't carry insurance or whatever that may be, right? I think that's probably going to be viewed a little bit different than, there's families or children involved in something to that effect. So I would be personally reluctant. I think most agents would be personally reluctant, but that is a method that is taught. That is a method that is applied, that is done in certain markets. Doesn't work well in every market, but there are some lower price tier markets that I know about where some investors do that. They buy properties that are in those kind of conditions, maybe sweep, clean them up a little bit and hand them over and try to sell them in that fashion to people that, hey, they can't afford a move-in ready property, or people that think they're handy and they can just go ahead and do it themselves, and they take the risk in that potentially, right? So maybe the work gets done and maybe it doesn't get done. So that's the junkie house method that I'm not a big fan of, but it is out there. So, and as a matter of fact, this last weekend we had an open house. So we did a rent-to-own open house on a property that we have, and one of the clients that walked through our property is move-in ready. So we were talking about that, and they were like, yeah, we just came from another one, but that house needed a whole lot of work and needed additional funds, and maybe needed like $25K to bring it up to code or fix it up and make it livable. Yes, they were going to let them in with less money down, but there's a reason for that, right? So it's less money down, but you got to do all the work and put the money in the materials, not just the labor, but the materials too. That costs money. Or would you prefer something that's more move-in ready, where you can just move in? Yeah, our properties are going to be move-in ready. A lot of times they're updated, but everything's going to be functional. It's going to pass an inspection. It's going to appraise, unlike some of these properties that they're putting people into them. So anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just to clarify, we're mainly talking about not companies, but individuals selling on in a rent-to-own fashion or contract for deed, not the big box kind of companies that we're more similar to, right?
Yeah. So great segue there, right? So the next group that we have is the big players, or as I like to call them, the big players. Yeah. These companies are backed by hedge funds, Wall Street, Blackstone, and some BlackRock, and some of these big companies, right? Yeah. And their methods are I don't see them as invested in hoping that the person completes the process. They're more of a property management company. They're accumulating single family homes. They're buying them and putting them out on rent to own. And if somebody gets to the finish line, fine. But if they don't, that's just fine with them as well, because they'll just put that property back on the market and reset the rental price, reset the selling price, and the merry-go-round continues, basically, right? So they're looking to park money in assets that are a hedge against inflation. That's really what they're doing, right? It's like buying gold. It's like buying bonds. They got money. They got so much capital that they can't deploy it all in the stock market.
Yep.
So they got a hedge against inflation, and one of the hedges against inflation is hard assets like real estate.
Yep.
So they're basically buying these properties, putting people in as a rent-to-own homes, and if they get it done, great. If not, that's fine, because they still continue owning the asset, and the asset continues to appreciate. And then they just put in a new person and a new person and a new person. So they don't ask for a whole lot of skin in the game, right? They ask for minimal skin in the game, and they're going to have some payments that are this year, and then if you continue on in year 2, the payment is going to go up, and year 3 is going to go up again, and so forth. So they're going to adjust their payment. It's not going to be a fix, unlike ours, where if you get into our program, the payment is going to be flat for the term of your loan. So you have some experience with those guys. You want to talk a little bit about them and some of the pitfalls and some of the stuff that you heard and you encountered?
Yeah, for sure. And we do escalate the rent price each year most of the time, but sometimes we also do just a flat rate. So it just kind of depends on the deal and the length of the term too. So I know you just do the flat, but yeah, you can do it different ways, but those other companies typically do it escalating each year, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's into their model, right? I think you want to bring up some of okay, so what happens with the maintenance and management and so forth of those properties, and right? So
let's dive into that. Yeah, so I hear reports back from people that are buyers in some of these programs. And I hear it from agents and other people that are involved too. I know one of the big companies has their own property management wing, and some of the problems I hear are that they're really slow to respond or no response. And if they do get in to fix up anything, sometimes it's shoddy work. And so those buyers are not super happy with them. We, on the other hand, we allow people to make updates, however they want. So they're not having to wait for those property management companies or relying on them and having them do shoddy work and not have any say in it. Right. So that's kind of the word on the street I hear about them.
Yeah. So if you think about it, right, these companies, they're big companies, and they're carrying maybe a portfolio of 1,000 to 2,500 properties in any specific market. So obviously, when you call them up, you're not going to get Dom or James or anybody that you know personally, right? Yeah. That they're in the business, they're in your market. So it isn't like you're calling so homes and so owner is going to pick up and say, hey, what's going on? No, how can I help you? Right? They're not picking it up. They're going to have some agents and some randos that are working in that company, and those people may come and go. Right? So there's a relationship aspect, and because they have so many, right, you're sort of just a number, and they hand off the process of managing those properties to another party. So there are some big, property management companies out there, or single family rental property companies out there that they don't do a rental method, but they just have a lot of rental properties or single family. They're buying them up, and we've seen that over the last 5 years. They've been buying properties up, and those are intended to be only rentals, but they sort of work in the same fashion, other than one is saying, hey, I'm never going to let you buy this property from me because it's not for sale. And the other one is saying, hey, we will do a rent to own, and we will agree to sell it to you in a year or 2 or 3 for a certain price down the road. Right. So, but the parent companies of those companies are the same people. They're just running 2 different models for a different audience in each. Right. Some want to have it. Some just want to be renters. Right. So we generally don't do that. Right. We're looking for people that want to own and not just be renters. That's why we call it rent to own, not rent to rent. It's as simple as that, right? So if you're somebody that's looking, hey, I just want to rent it, and then maybe in a year I'll decide if I want to do this or that, you're not going to be a fit. And people may say, well, why can't I just take my time to decide? Well, here's the thing, right? There's got to be a commitment on your part in wanting a house, because we're letting you pick the house. It isn't like we're giving you a couple of these houses that we have in inventory per se, right? You're picking the house, you're picking the location, you're picking the area. There's a reason why you're picking it, right? So you got to want it, just like if you got your bank from, if you got your loan from a big bank, you don't tell them, hey, I'm going to get this loan. You're going to give me the loan, but I'm going to think about it for 12 months. And then in 12 months, hey, if I don't like it, I'm just going to give you the house back, right? It doesn't work that way. right? So you got to want that property, and you're picking it. So that's why we work our strategy or our program in that manner, right? So some of these companies don't care that you will walk away because they're going to just put it back out in the market, and they don't have that vested interest in getting you to the finish line, right? It's just an asset that they own. They call it rent to own, and you're making payments. But if you don't complete it or don't complete it, it's just an asset that they're holding in their portfolio long term, and they're gonna put it back out there again. So,
yeah. So I guess that's a good segue into kind of one of the biggest things for this subject is vetting the buyers and making sure we're setting them up for success so they can buy, right? So do you want to dive into that?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So I like to tell people this program isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
It's definitely not for everybody. You got to want the house. We just talked about commitment on your part, right? You got to want to take the steps to fix whatever that's keeping you from qualifying for traditional financing.
Yep.
Right? Whether it's credit, documenting your income, getting caught up on your tax returns, any of that, right? Any of those items. You gotta want it, right? And so as I mentioned on some of these big box companies, they don't care whether you complete it or not. So they're not looking at you as, hey, what is it that you got to get done so that way you can get your financing and buy us out, basically. They don't care because they're going to just keep the property and have you move on and put somebody else, right? We care about that fact because as a lender, I'm looking at your profile to make sure, hey, are you going to be able to qualify for exit financing on a conventional loan or FHA loan or VA loan or some other program that may be available, right? Yep. And that's a key aspect to our program. We don't put people into $1 million house that'll never qualify for $1 million loan, right? That just setting them up to fail. It's just not a good feeling for us to know, hey, we know this person is never going to complete the process, and we're going to just go ahead and take their money, basically, right? That's not what we do. That's not what I want. I like to sleep well at night, and I have a very good comfort level of knowing, hey, can this person get it done now? There are certain things that we can't do for them, right? We can't go take them to, I don't know, to their CPA. We can direct them to people. We can send them, hey, we have some resources that you can go to and go get this done. Yep. But we're not going to go knock on their house and drive them to it and hold their hand all the way through with that, right? There's an aspect of being responsible, adult, and doing your part so that way we can get you to the finish line, right? We can give you all the advice and all the counseling, but you got to take the steps. And if you're not somebody that's ready for that responsibility, then you're not going to be a fit, right? And like I said, not everybody's a fit to that. So I think that's the beauty of our program because we're letting you pick the house. So you got to do your part. So that way you complete the process. And I think it's just a better business model overall, right? Yeah. I'd rather tell more people, hey, we got 95% of our people to the finish line versus 50% or even less with some of these programs because they don't really care.
Yeah. Yeah. We want to give them that game plan. And also we follow up with them as well. These other, big players, they're not checking in every 6 months or 12 months or whatever is ideal. Just make sure everybody's on track,
Yeah, that's the relationship aspect of this business, I think, that we bring, right? So we're not massive to the point where we're having 2,500 properties that we got to manage in just my market and then your market and then another market, some of these players. And talking about this, speaking of markets, right? These big players right now aren't buying, basically, right? For all intents and purposes, they're not buying because they pulled out of a lot of markets that they were in before rates went up. And now that the rates are up, they pulled out in a lot of markets. And then in some of the markets that they are still, quote unquote, buying, I don't know how many they're buying, but when they're making an offer on a property that's on market, they're offering 10 to 15% below asking price.
I've heard like even 30% below list price. This is from realtors that are
Yep.
trying to help their clients get into these
Yep.
homes, and they're like, we just wasted all of our time. Like,
Right.
the sellers, I mean, there's some distressed sellers out there, there's price drops and stuff, but it's not to the
But typically
30% below
not.
the list.
Yeah, we're not to that point. I mean, if it were 2010, maybe you could make those kind of offers and get them, right?
Yeah.
On a move-in ready property, right? So all you wholesalers out there, yeah, I know you can make you make the low ball offers out there, but those are like junky houses, right? We're
Yep.
talking move-in ready on market properties, right? If there is an asking price, generally it's going to be within a range, maybe, I don't know, 5 to 10% within a range of true value, right? True value.
Yeah.
So to make an offer 15 to 30% in a balanced market, when I say balanced market, meaning there's an equivalent of about buyers and sellers, and balanced market basically is up to 6 months of inventory, right? That's always been. I think people have gotten crazy with what had happened a few years back, right? 2020, 21, up to 22 or early 22, anyways. First quarter of 22, before rates really took off, was where people were, oh yeah, we put it on the market, and on a Friday, and by Monday we got 10 offers, and no, that was the cycle, days on market, right? But in reality, if you go back to what we call normal times, balanced market was 6 months of inventory. That was a normal market, right? 90 to 60 or 90 to 6 months days on market, listing days, was the typical, right? This craziness where things have been flying off the shelf basically because of the cheap rates, right? Because of the cheap rates, and then some of the influx of money in certain markets because people were getting out of high price markets into lower price markets, and they were coming in with cash. So overpaying wasn't an issue because it was basically free money to them. It wasn't like they had to accumulate it. They sold a higher price house that had appreciated so much, right? That it wasn't like real money. It was monopoly money basically, right? So real balance in market, it's typically 6 months, 6 months of inventory, and we're not quite there yet. I think just recently or early in the week, I saw some stats from different markets where probably some of the markets that have the highest amount of inventory in Florida and Texas right now. And there's a reason because of that, right? Because builders started overbuilding again because there was a big influx of people from the Northeast going down to Florida, and a lot of California people going, a lot of Colorado people going down to Texas too, and so forth. And that drove up the prices, and builders started building. Well, when builders build, it takes a couple of years to get that inventory out, right? I mean, it's not like an instant, right? They don't snap their fingers and the house is up, right? Yeah. So that's what creates the glut because there's a delay. So those markets are seeing increases in inventory, but it's not even. I mean, it's barely to like 2019 inventory levels. Yeah, so it's nothing close to 2010 and so forth like that. So it's small. The question will be is, hey, how soon does the Fed start lowering rates to because as soon as we start getting into, I'm thinking 6.5%, we're probably a little bit under 7 right now on the conventional side. Once we get to like 6.5%, lower sixes, I think there's going to be an influx of buyers again, right? And some movement again. Yep. So, but yeah, so in these markets where they're making offers and they're lowballing to some extent, 15 to 30%, then that's not a real offer. An agent that's taking time to show those properties isn't going to get that close, right? So they can say, yeah, we're buying in those markets, but for all intents and purposes, they're really not buying, right? They're saying we're buying, but they're really not making a legitimate offer. So I don't see them as being active in the industry right now. As a matter of fact, I'm in a couple of the Facebook groups that they run just to see what the commentary is from agents around the country in different markets. And those are the biggest complaints. It's like, well, I spent all this time working with this client. We found the property. We told this company, hey, we want that property. They write up the offer, submit the offer, and it's so low that the seller isn't going to accept it. So what's the point?
Yeah.
So we don't do that. We offer asking price generally, right? We're going to offer asking price, but that's always going to be contingent upon an appraisal. So if it appraisers for asking price, great. If for some reason somebody is asking $1 million on a $500,000 house that's really $500,000, then obviously that's not going to end up working because the appraiser is going to tell us that, right? So third-party appraiser, independent appraiser that would be acceptable to lenders. That's the only kind of appraisal that we work with. So for all intents and purposes, these companies aren't doing a whole lot of business. So. Any other ones that we may have missed? I think talked about the property management and how these big players operate, junkie houses. There's another one that probably I would like to talk to, but I'm gonna give you a chance to kind of see if you can think of any other ones.
Nothing's coming to mind. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so us for being in the investor circle, being around other investors and knowing a lot of investors and so investor groups and so forth. The one that I am seeing is the sub-2 group. The sub-2 group, right? So I've had several conversations with a few people as it relates to, hey, I have a sub-2 property that I am not intending to occupy, right? So there's two aspects to it. If you buy a property on sub-2, and this also goes to assumptions, right? Because I see a lot of people, hey, assume this FHA loan, assume this VA loan at 3.25 and whatever rate, right? Whatever rate, assume it, right? So that's wonderful. One, you have to qualify for that. Two, right? So you have to qualify for that. Two, if there's a gap between the balance and the selling price, you have to come up with that money out of pocket, right? So if somebody started with a 3% loan at $300,000, they've had it say for 10 years, they paid it down to $200,000. That person may say, "Yeah, I'll let you assume my 3% loan, $200,000, but you got to give me $100,000, my equity." Right? That's the only way the lender that does the assumption is going to let you do it. They got to know that you have the difference in the price, right? So obviously the contract's going to say selling price of $300,000, take over a balance of $200,000, down payment of $100,000, and then the lender or the servicer that's going to review that assumption to see if you qualify with your pay stub W-2s and credit. Is going to want to know that you have that money.
Yeah.
Now, could that money be a gift, just like a down payment gift? Yeah, it could be. Yeah. It could be. Could it come from a 401k, a retirement account, just like down payment for a traditional person? It could be, yeah. Now, but the reality is most people don't have that.
Yeah. Right?
So there's a gap. So while it's wonderful to offer assumptions, I see the posts from agents. Yeah, assume this. Well, how much is there a gap between the two? How many are realistically going to be able to come up with that gap?
Yeah. Right.
So that's one aspect. Two, on the sub-2 side, I see people say, yeah, you could buy a sub-2 and take over the responsibility of that debt if you're going to move into it. But the pitfalls I see is when these people are buying them as investments and their exit is going to be, I'm going to put a third party to take it over without vetting that third party.
Yeah.
Because now that seller's credit is at risk and these people are getting out of the transaction and they may be collecting their money on the assignment, but that third party hasn't been vetted appropriaply.
Yeah.
Do they qualify? Do they have a job? Can they make payments? It's sold as, yeah, you don't need to qualify, but there's the responsibility that goes with that. Right? Yeah. Do they have to have perfect credit necessarily? No. But do they have the ability to pay? Right? Yeah. Do they have an income source to make that payment? And is that appropriate for them? If the payment is $3,000 and their monthly income is $3,000, should you be placing them in that property? No. How are they going to pay the bills? How are they going to eat? How are they going to pay for insurance?
Yeah.
Right. So there's an aspect of lending, or ability to repay, as it's called in the lending world. Right. And this is these are things that we learn as lenders, right? Ability to repay. And there are laws to that. When you're doing these kind of transactions, you have to be able to determine that if the person can actually support that payment that you're letting them handle, right? You can't just throw somebody in there and wash your hands of it, and whatever happens, happens. Because if this goes to court, judge is going to say, well, did you know that this person wasn't going to be able to pay? How did you put this person's house and credit at risk by doing that?
Yeah.
It's been done too easily, right? Because everybody's kind of jumped on the bandwagon per se.
Yeah.
But they're not skilled enough to be able to understand what the pitfalls or the impacts of it. And I'm not saying everybody, right? There are people that are skilled enough that understand that have some of the backgrounds that we have to be able to know that what's the proper way of doing it, right? Until somebody gets themselves into trouble, I guess everything is all good, right? But these are the things to look out for, and that's why we apply these methods to our client. Make sure that they are capable, and we're putting them in the right property, right? If they can't afford $500,000 or $600,000, then they have no business in that. Well, let's find them something that they can legitimately afford, that's in their payment range, or that they can afford, that they truly qualify for, and be honest with them. Sometimes you just have to tell people the truth and say, hey, look, your income doesn't support you getting into this house. I know it's a nice house, got a pool, and you would love to have it, but are we really doing you any favors by doing that, right? Because we're going to take, you may lose your money, right? I mean, are you okay with that? You may lose your money because you're going to get yourself into trouble. Let's not do that, right? Sometimes we got to save people from themselves. So.
Yep, 100%. Like every day, all day, we're doing that, right?
Yeah, and it's nice to dream, but sometimes you have to, people got to get hit with cold water a little bit and say, hey, look, we want to help you, but we're not helping you by putting you in a bad spot.
Yep.
Right. Let's not do that, right? Or at least you're not going to do it with us. Right. If you definitely want it, somebody else, I'm sure, will give it to you and probably doesn't care. Right. But hey, that's not us. Right. So I believe in being able to do good business the right way. There's plenty of opportunity doing it that way without having to resort to some of these other methods that are questionable, highly questionable for sure.
Yeah. I wanted to add too, like Dominic and I both teach classes typically at title companies and partner with lenders and, brokerages and stuff to teach everybody in the business about what we do and the right way to do it. So a lot of these things we're talking about, we are covering in those classes. So if anybody wants to host a class for their team, reach out to us either in Phoenix or Colorado, and shoot, we could do this anywhere, state, just on Zoom. Most of the time I do teach just on Zoom. So
So location is not a deterrent for us, right? We can physically be there, as we do, and also do it through a Zoom, or heck, I talked about, hey, if you have an audience, you're an agent or a lender, you have an audience that you see could benefit from the rent-to-own program, and have that as a lead source for you, because you will get paid as an agent if we're buying on market, right? And as a lender down the road, when these people actually need the financing, once they fix up what's keeping them, if you have an audience, we'd be more than glad. And we've done a couple with a few agents. We're doing them lives. They're doing them lives on their Instagram account, right? We can do them live. They have a YouTube channel, or we can do a recording and talk about it just like this, and then you could post it after the fact. Or we can, have you join our show one of these weeks, and we're intending on probably now that we've covered a lot of the topics, maybe the next phase for us is bring on different people in the industry that are either agents or realtors in different markets, and have them share to their audience so that their audience can kind of join us and ask questions live.
Yeah, totally. That'd be great. Live Q&A.
Yep, live Q&A.
Yeah.
And we are live now. We haven't had any questions, but so there's opportunity for you out there as agents. You got to think a little bit outside the box. Got to put yourself out there a little bit too, right? If you're not comfortable getting in front of the camera, you're gonna have to get over that. You're not gonna do very well as an agent if you can't put yourself in front of a camera, even a little bit, right? You're gonna do marketing. You're gonna have your picture out there. You're gonna have to do some reels, shorts, lives, and any of that type of marketing, right? So,
yep. Don't be a
you have to get over your fear. You can't be a secret agent. Exactly. Yeah, definitely. So reach out to us. We're more than happy to kind of collaborate. We've done some collaborative marketing, flyers, posts, right? So whoever your audience is, we can kind of gear it towards like, hey, who is your audience? Who's your avatar? Let's write the right script and copy and or posts or flyers to kind of share our program with them and have you benefit as the person that's bringing those clients, because you are going to get paid. So it's just another marketing source for another program that 99% of agents aren't using, don't know about, don't have. So you could be the outlier in the industry, and people can come to you, say, hey, how do I find out about this, or so forth, and you can be the go-to person in your market.
Nope.
Right? And we have a few agents like that around the country that are the go-to rent-to-own persons in their market, because they took the time to actually learn how it works, how to apply it, how to market it, and being able to offer it to other people. So if people want to get in touch with you, James, how can they do that?
Go to Linktree/partner with James Brown, or you can go direct to our website, realhomesolutions.org.
Cool. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can go to our website, RentToOwnHomesUS.com. That's on top of our banner here. That's our website. Register on there and submit your information if you're interested in finding properties or you want to have a discussion. Or I can be reached on Instagram, TikTok, and my YouTube channel as Mr. Rent-to-Own Homes. That's Mr. Rent-to-Own Homes. And also the info for my email and phone number are in my bio and all of those platforms. So that is it for today. I love this topic because it's important. It just seems to be like, we have these discussions each week, and it's a topic that just kind of resurfaces or creates the topic that we want to get out there, because some of these questions come up with people that are regular questions and so forth, right? So that's what we love about this business. Anyways, until next time, bye-bye.